Okay, welcome back to Roadmap to Retirement, the podcast. I am your host, Alex Neary.
This is Roadmap to Retirement. Tune in for financial tips, investment strategies, and smart money moves to supercharge your retirement savings. Alex Neary, CFP, and guests are here to help you build your roadmap to retirement.
Today, we are going to do I like to call it a client mailbag episode, which is a cheesy way of saying questions that people have asked me recently, either off of the podcast episodes or just questions I've had from clients over the course of the last month or so since we did this last time. So let's get right into it. We're not going to waste any time. But the first question is, I'm retired. I'm going to paraphrase this one. Basically, I'm retired. I'm spending money faster than I had planned. What can I do? So this is a person that is retired and they're now worried about running out of money. Or maybe not running out of money, but just having the realization that they plan on spending $5,000 a month, but it's been more like 7 or 8. I think this is where just going back to the drawing board and maybe reevaluating your plan can be helpful. Because first of all, is it a problem? Maybe you're planning on spending $5,000 a month and you're spending $7,000 a month. And yeah, that's more money, so it doesn't sound good. We'd rather spend less. But it might be very possible that based on your financial situation, based on the money you have set aside in investments, maybe you can spend $7,000 a month and it's not even an issue. So I would first, let's go back to the plan, meet with your advisor, meet with myself, and say, I'm now spending $7,000 a month. Is that sustainable? And we might find that it is sustainable, and then you don't have a problem. Just go enjoy your retirement, live happily ever after. Or, and I think where this person's coming from is they've already come to the belief that it is a problem, and maybe they're right. If it is a problem and we need to find a way to spend less money as we had planned on, what are some options to do that? And this is where, as a financial advisor, it's really hard to, I'm not going to follow everybody around. I can't follow all my clients around all day and tell them not to spend money on different things. I can't slap their wrist when they buy a cup of coffee. But I think that going through some kind of budget exercise can be helpful. So recognizing where are we spending money today that we previously didn't think we'd be spending money on when we planned our retirement a few years ago. So it could be that you have a new expense, you retired and you've got all this time to kill. You have 40 hours a week that you were working before, and now you're free to do whatever. So you're going out there and spending money on different hobbies and interests. And generally that's a good thing. It could be that you're traveling more. It could be that you're doing more house projects, whatever the thing is. Let's at least first identify what is different today than what we had planned on. It's also possible that in the world we live in, inflation has just gotten out of hand and things just cost more than we anticipated them costing when we started doing the planning years ago. So now I've identified, is it a problem? Yes or no? We're going down the avenue of, yes, it is a problem. What can we do to correct it? And now we're saying, okay, yes, it is a problem, but why is it a problem? What are we actually doing today that we didn't plan on when we started the plan? So let's say we identify that it is just frivolous spending. You're doing things that are fun in retirement. You're enjoying it. I think coming to an agreement with yourself of how much you're going to allow that to happen is necessary. Of course, we want to have, I'm not going to say all frivolous spending is bad. We want you to enjoy your money. That's the whole point of the plan, is to allow you to have the freedom to go out and do things you want to do. But maybe we need to have an agreement with ourselves that we, only go out to eat once a week, or we only go on one trip a year, whatever it is. And it's probably going to require getting down to some kind of disciplined fashion. So in any kind of financial planning budget conversation, there's 2 levers, right? We've talked about spending less money, so we can do that. We're going through your budget, figuring out what we can cut out. There's also the second lever, which is sometimes a better option, of bringing in more income. So let's say this person retired, they've got a pension, they've got Social Security, and they've been taking withdrawals from their IRA, and they're saying that's been too much. What if we could turn down the IRA withdrawals and replace it with income from somewhere else? And you know where this is going. Maybe we can start to work part-time, which, depending on who I'm talking to, might sound like the worst idea in the world, but for a lot of people, that is a realistic option, where if you can go out and work in a very limited capacity, maybe you get a couple $100s a week, $1,000 a month or so, maybe that can be your fund money. So now you got your Social Security check, your pension check, and that pays for the cost of living. That pays to keep the lights on in the house. If you still got a mortgage, it's going towards that. If you got a car payment, it's going towards that. And then your fund money is a trade-off with yourself. It's, if I'm willing to go work this part-time job for 10 hours this week and I make $15 an hour, that's $150 that I made this week. Now I have $150 that I can go spend guilt-free on something fun that I want to do and not have to worry about running out. So those are some ideas for the person that is worried about spending too much money in retirement, again, start by identifying, is it even a problem? Because I think a lot of times I have this conversation with clients and they're like, hey, Alex, I'm spending all this money. I don't know what to do. I feel like it's just going so fast. And we go back to their plan and we look at the assets they have. And the conversation turns into, no, Mr. and Mrs. Client, this is actually sustainable. I know you don't like seeing the money go out, but you do have enough wealth to reasonably generate this amount of income for the rest of your lifetime. And if that's the goal, then we don't need to change anything. Moving on to the second thing. So this one's sort of similar, but in a sadder way. So I had somebody reach out. Basically, their situation was my father passed away. My mother, who's well into her 80s, was left behind, of course. But my father's pension didn't have a survivor benefit on it. So they, as a couple, had been relying on my father's pension for their entire retirement. Now my father passed away. We didn't think of this. He left my mom high and dry with no pension income. So now she has her Social Security, but that's really not enough for her to live on. So what can I do to help my mom financially, pay her bills? What are some ideas? This is one of those, there's no really good answer. There's some obvious things you can do, but you're not going to love any of them. For starters, we could have mom go back to work. Mom's into her 80s. Maybe that's just not realistic. Probably not on the table, right? So let's just remove that. Mom's not going back to work. That's not happening. Other ideas, we need to change something about her financial situation. If increasing her income isn't one of them, what did we just say? If we can't increase her income, we need to decrease her expenses. So looking at mom's living situation, is she still in the home she's been in for 50 years? Probably, maybe. If she, is it an option to sell that house? This gets emotional. This is a hard thing to do, but that might be the best realistic option, is selling the house frees up some cash. Today's real estate market's pretty good, especially locally. Get a chunk of money. That money can then be spent on some kind of rental. Maybe mom wants to go into a nice senior living facility. Maybe she doesn't want to, but needs to. So you can use the money from the proceeds from the sale of the house to pay that expense for the foreseeable future in combination with her Social Security. Maybe in doing so, you're able to lower a lot of her monthly expenses anyway. Utilities can be lower, maintenance costs can be lower. That might be an option. Recognizing, of course, it's emotional and mom's not going to love it. The second kind of obvious solution that goes along with that is you can look into different reverse mortgage programs. I'm not an expert on that. I don't want to get too deep into it, but you can find an option where mom can stay in the house and get some revenue from the house for her lifetime. And then obviously, if you do that, once she does pass away, there's not going to be the same house there that's left to the children or inheritance, but this person is well beyond considering inheritance. We are looking for a solution for mom for the rest of her life. So those are some ideas. They're not all the ideas, but that'll hopefully get you thinking. Changing gears a little bit. So with inflation and American consumerism, there is definitely a trend around younger people, we'll say young families, starting to accumulate credit card debt faster than they'd like to, which is obvious because nobody wants to accumulate credit card debt. But I'm finding more and more people that have dug a pretty deep hole, and it's how do you get out of it? So I guess we'll go backwards. We'll start with the how do you get out of it, and then we'll go to some of the more fundamental issues. So how do you get out of it? You can look at a personal, let's take a step back. I'm going too fast here. So let's say you've got $30,000 of credit card debt. What can you do about it? The issue with credit card debt is, of course, the high interest rate. So if you're paying 20% on $30,000, that's $6,000 a year of interest. That's not where you want to be. So you could look at lower cost loan options. So you could go to a bank and see about a personal loan, and maybe you can get a personal loan for 10%. Still not great, but you can use that personal loan, pay off your credit card, and now you've got a lower interest rate relatively. You can also, if you're looking for favorable interest rates, you could take a loan against a retirement account. Alex, the financial advisor, hates that idea behaviorally. I think it's a bad thing to do. I think it creates a bad habit. It gives you an escape route that I'm afraid you'll revisit too often. But you could do that if you take a loan against your 401k or 403b, different programs have different rates, but you're probably getting something closer to a mortgage rate. And when you pay it back, it's going into your account. So you're effectively borrowing from yourself. So I think that if you do have, again, let's say $30,000 of credit card debt, taking a loan against your 401k could be a good option. I would just urge you not to go to that too often, but you could do that. And then there's the old-fashioned bootstrap way of just paying it off as you go. Every extra penny you get goes towards your credit card, and you're going to pay that off as fast as you can. You're going to work extra hours, get another job. Whatever it is, you can do it that way. So that is the how to get out of credit card debt, which is Again, a lot of what I'm saying today is a little bit obvious, but sometimes you need to hear someone else say it. The bigger issue is like, how did we get there? And I always like to ask this question when somebody says, "Hey, Alex, I've got credit card debt. I want to know why. How did you get the credit card debt? Is it just that things added up over a decade and you just got an extra $100 added to it every month for the last, whatever, 120 months? Or is it that you had a one-time thing happen? You had something broke at the house and it was gonna cost $10,000 to fix it, and you really didn't have an option because it was put it on a credit card or not have heat in your house and your kids don't like freezing to death. So you're like, hey, let's do that. That's not a funny joke to make. But anyway, is that how it got there? And if that's how it is, we need to figure out what can we do to prevent that happening in the future. So if you were the person that is just gradually adding credit card debt every month for a decade, then it seems like you can't afford your day-to-day living. That's just the reality is you're not living within your means. Or if you're the person that had that one-time expense to get on there and you're never able to pay it off, in a similar way, you're not exactly living within your means, but the bigger issue is that you did not have an emergency fund for that emergency that happened. So let's say we get through this credit card debt situation. What are we gonna do differently the next time? We need to find a way to live within our means, which is a hard conversation. It's not just canceling Netflix. Netflix did not get you in this hole. It's bigger than that. And then once we do that, it's how do we get the emergency fund established? So I think this is a hard conversation for a lot of advisors to have, myself included, is you are not living within your means. What are you going to do differently? And it's, again, bigger than Netflix. It's you need to sell your house and move to one you can afford because you clearly can't afford your house, or you need to increase your income. It seems like every conversation today is going back to the two levers. We have the increase your income and we have the reduce your expenses. Which one do you want to do? You might need to do both. I mentioned that I find this a lot with young families, which is particularly emotional because if you're racking up credit card debt and you've got kids that are school age, me telling you to go bartend 4 nights a week probably isn't great advice. You don't want to miss your kid's soccer game because you're working constantly, but you might need to do that for your family, not in a judgmental way, but there might just be a reality that you need to earn more money. How are you going to do it? Is working a part-time job the way to do that? So increasing income is one way. The other is reducing expenses. Similarly, I hate telling you that you have to sell your house because you can't afford it, but it might be realistically, something has to change. It might not be the house, it might be the car. Are you sound really judgmental, but are you somebody that has credit card debt and you had a big house and 2 new cars in the driveway? We might need to look in the mirror and change that. All right, this episode's getting too lectury for my taste. I'm gonna move on from credit card debt, but there's some thoughts for you. More positive. All right, so this person is retiring in 2 years. Great, congratulations. Retiring in 2 years, but for them, they have defined retirement as they are gonna go work somewhere else. So they've worked at the same place for 30 plus years, had a good career there. It's time for them to retire from that job, but they're not ready to be done working. So they've already got another job lined up elsewhere. This person, I know their background, they are gonna work full-time in this job. It's not a part-time situation. It's just a career change. They're fortunate to be in a position where they can retire in their mid-50s and they still want to go work for another 10 plus years. So they're going to go work somewhere else. So, what should this person be considering? I think the first thing that I see is a lot of times with employer sponsored retirement plans in particular, you might be invested in some kind of target date fund, or you might have always been planning towards this retirement date that is 2 years from now. So without looking in it, not without looking at it or really getting in the weeds about it, I would guess that you are more conservative in your investments than you should be. If the idea is that you were going to retire from this job and not touch any of your money until you retire from the second job, once your second career is done in 10 plus years, now you might start to take withdrawals from your retirement accounts. If that's the case, then we want to be in a fairly aggressive investment. We're not planning on retiring 2028. We're really planning on retiring 2038. So making sure that your investments are aligned with your time horizons will be very important for this person. So once we've done that, we have other considerations. What's going to happen with your health insurance? So if you're leaving job A to go to job B, maybe it's assumed that you have health insurance at the new employer. Maybe you have a retirement benefit at the employer you're leaving. So weeding through which are the best options there can definitely be helpful. If you're leaving a job with a pension, do you have the option of claiming the pension right away or delaying until you are officially retired? That's a consideration. If you are taking your pension and you are going to go work another job, are you going to be in a higher tax bracket than you've ever been? Is there things we can do today to offset that? All things to consider. So plenty to talk about there, but the big ones are making sure your investments are aligned. Consider your tax strategy if you're going to have more income than you're used to having. And then make sure your health insurance is one, available, and two, make sure you're taking the best option for yourself. Next question. I've been planning for my retirement a long time. I have adult children at this point. When should I bring them into the conversation? So, this person is saying that they've done a good job planning for retirement. They've got their ducks in a row. And at some point, they think they might want to bring their adult children into the conversation just to make them aware of mom and dad's financial situation, which I think is a good idea. We talk to people about this a lot. We call it the beneficiary meeting. So usually my clients have been retired for a few years. I encourage them to bring their adult child or beneficiary into the picture and share as much information as you'd like to. You can make them privy to all kinds of things, certain things you might want to keep confidential. But I think that getting away from the idea that money is taboo and talking about it with your family is important. It allows your kids to be organized when they need to step into the situation. So whether you've already passed or whether you're just in a spot where mentally, cognitively you can't handle these things anymore, having your kids already aware of what's going on is a great benefit. It also puts some pressure on you to be organized. I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with a retired person or couple and they have things all over the place. They have different bank accounts, they have CDs, they have different financial accounts, retirement accounts. Everything's kind of scattered. And then having the pressure of sitting at a conference room table with their advisor and their 30-year-old child and saying, Mom and Dad, you need to get everything in one spot, can be beneficial and it can push you to make some changes that are maybe uncomfortable otherwise. So I guess the foundation of this question is when to bring kids in. I think the sooner the better. I'm not saying you tell your 10-year-old everything, but if you have adult children and you're getting older, it's never too soon to bring them in the conversation. And if you did a good job raising your kids, it won't be a bad thing. It'll be a positive. A couple more questions I want to get to today. I don't think we'll get to all of them because I guess I'm rambling too much, but how much money should I have in the bank? So I've seen this question several times. I guess there's two kinds of people that ask this question. There is the maybe older person who's just accumulated money forever and they've got a couple $100,000, $50,000, whatever the number is, sitting in cash in the bank. And then you've got people of all ages, maybe a younger person though, that just has a very conservative risk tolerance and they have comfort in knowing the money's in the bank. So two people, one loves having money in the bank. The other got there unintentionally and doesn't really have an emotional connection to it being there. So how much should you have? If you go back to the CFP textbook, so what they train us as a CFP, they would tell you 3 to 6 months of expenses. So if you need $5,000 a month to live on, you should have $15,000 to $30,000 in the bank. Very rough math. Everyone's situation is different, which is why we're talking about this. So I think that's a good starting point. I think if you get outside of that is where you really need to have a conversation of letting go emotionally and saying it's okay to not have all this money in the bank. Let's get some invested, which is ultimately where this conversation is going to go. And there's a million different ways you can do that. But no matter where you do your banking, even if you're using a high yield bank account, your rate of return is not going to hold up long-term compared to market performances. That's just historically what we've seen. This time could be different, but it's probably not. So I would say use that as a rule of thumb. If you have more than 6 months of living expenses in the bank, talk to your advisor, get some money invested elsewhere, and allow it to grow for the long term. On the other side of that, so people that are like, that's crazy, I don't have anywhere near that much money saved, start small. I'm telling you 3 to 6 months. So if you're saying, I don't even have 3 months saved, don't beat yourself up over it, but let's just try to move the stick in the right direction. There's a study out there, and I'm going to botch it, but there's some shockingly low percentage of Americans have $1,000 in the bank. I know the Dave Ramsey thing is get the first 1,000. So if you have no savings, you're living paycheck to paycheck, start by getting to 1,000. And I think some people, it's a matter of hiding money from themselves. So set up a separate savings account at a different institution, start putting money in there, make it something that you can't see easily, something you can't access easily. And then eventually do the math on how long it takes you to 1,000 and go from there. If you have other questions that you would like to toss in there, feel free to reach out and we'll go from there. Thanks. Bye.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Individual tax or legal matters should be discussed with your tax or legal professional.